The practice of making maps of your own home is a tale as old as time. As soon as Doom fans had the ability to edit levels, they were creating maps of their houses, apartments, and offices. The earliest such map could even be considered to be present in Doom 2 itself. Map 16's Suburbs features 2 buildings based on id level designer Sandy Peterson's own home, as well as his parents' house. These days, such maps are often called MyHouse.wads by the Doom mapping community, half derogatorily, with implication that they are unimaginative beginner maps made with love by newbie authors just learning to use the mapping tools. While they are widely considered to be good practice, the authors of MyHouse.wads often lack the skill and experience necessary to create memorable gameplay. These maps often end up feeling lonely and empty at best, broken and boring at worst. So when a map called literally MyHouse.wad was uploaded to the Doom World forums by a user named Veg on March 2nd, 2023, I didn't think much of it. I smiled to myself, thinking it was great that even after 30 years after Doom was released, people are still happily mapping their own homes in this game and excitedly sharing the results with others online. And then, without a second thought, I moved on to other things, just like I had with hundreds of other beginner maps I've seen shared online. Which is unfair, but it's the sort of thing that happens when you see hundreds of new maps uploaded daily. But I kept hearing about MyHouse.wad, not the concept, but this specific map. There was something about it that had people interested. So I took a closer look. And I really wish I had done so a lot earlier, because MyHouse.wad is not what it seems. Excited to finally release this tribute map. Last August, I lost a good childhood friend of mine and took it pretty hard. When I was visiting my hometown for his funeral, I connected with his parents, who shared with me some of his old belongings. Among them was a copy of an old map of his backed up on a 3.5-inch floppy from high school. Thomas and I were into amateur Doom mapping in the early 2000s, but I had never seen this map of his prior to uncovering it on one of the old floppy disks. As a way of paying tribute to him and all the great memories we had together, I took the plunge and installed Doom Builder in order to polish up his map and add a few modern amenities just for convenience's sake. I haven't touched an editor in over 15 years, so it was quite a surprise to find out how easy mapping had become. I may have gotten a little carried away with these new UDMF features, and as such, the map is designed for GZ Doom. Making maps of your house was all the rage back in the day, but I feel like this is a pretty adorable and detailed tribute to my friend, and a great way to share something of him with a community we loved. Miss you, Tom. Clicking on the download link, however, doesn't simply download the map as you might expect. Instead, it leads to a zip file containing a number of items. The map is here, of course, both the original WAD version created by Tom and the one touched up by Veg in PK3 format, along with some screenshots. But also included in the download are pictures of a photo album, some images from a sketchbook, and a copy of Veg's journal covering the time period after Tom's death where he found, edited, and uploaded MyHouse.wad. The first thing you'll notice about this journal is that every instance of the word house is rendered in blue text. It's a nice little nod to House of Leaves, but even if you haven't read that book, it should clue you in that there's something ominous going on here. Keep an eye on that house, because it's not normal. The journal begins on August 4th, 2022, the day Tom passed away, and it repeats the story Veg already told us about meeting Tom's parents and being given the discs containing his old Doom maps. In the journal, he also lets us know that they gave him Tom's sketchbook and photos, the other contents in the download. The sketches, Veg tells us, are strange and unexpected. They're abstract, dark images depicting sadness, death, and despair. It's obvious Veg had no idea his friend was struggling with depression. Uncomfortable with the contents of the sketchbook, Veg moves on to the discs, discovering the old Doom map of Tom's house, and spends the next several days familiarizing himself with modern Doom mapping tools and browsing the Doom World forums for the first time in 10 years. On August 29th, there appears a journal entry that has been completely crossed out. I had the strangest dream last night about my childhood friend who recently passed. We were playing Legos in his basement like we used to do as kids, and when I turned around, he was gone. The house was empty and silent, everything was so quiet and still. I started to smell smoke and hear screams from upstairs. I ran upstairs, and when I got there, the house was just a burning frame. Smoke was getting thicker and thicker, and I could barely see or breathe. I searched for my friend, but I couldn't find him anywhere. I couldn't see anything. I started to panic, and then I found myself outside in the fog. I was alone, but I could hear low growls in the distance. When I woke up, I wished so badly that it was all just a dream, but I knew deep down that it was real. I just miss my friend so much, and it's hard to think that he's gone. There's nothing worse than letting your mind dwell on something. After a while, it starts to consume you. Just now, I decided to order a replacement set of smoke detectors with CO2 sensors, just in case. On September 2nd, Veg posts some screenshots of Tom's map to the Doomworld forums, and says the well wishes and encouragement he received there gave him the boost he needed to clean up and release the map. Checking Veg's forum history reveals that he did indeed make this post in the real 2022 Doom Pictures thread, his first post in nearly 10 years. Over the next few months, nearly all of his posts are asking questions about editing maps, new developments in mapping formats and conventions, and how to upload and share maps publicly. The commitment to this work of unfiction is truly incredible. Veg spends the next month working on the map, excited to share Tom's work with the world, but by October 13th, he seems to have become somewhat possessive over the map. He mentions in his journal that he feels no one else should make edits to the map, and on the Doomworld forums begins posting his concerns that if he shares the map with others, he doesn't want them to make any changes to it. On the forums, he sounds mostly concerned with keeping his tribute to his friend's passing from being transformed into something unwanted, and is worried that the Doom community might see him as rude or selfish for not allowing edits to be made. In his journal, however, Veg tells a different story. He feels compelled by some mysterious force to keep the map to himself and to work on it alone. November 4th's journal entry comes with another strange quirk in the text. The number 2 has been highlighted in red. The entry itself also marks a very explicit shift in the narrative. I had an incredibly vivid dream last night. This has been happening for several weeks now, so I feel I should start documenting them. I'll do my best to recall the events of my dreams. I awoke in a cold sweat, my heart pounding in my ears. I felt a chill run down my spine and I knew something was wrong. I lay in bed, too afraid to move, when I heard a faint, ghostly cry coming from the attic. I had heard this sound before, but this time it was louder and more insistent. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just my imagination, but the more I tried to push it away, the louder it became. I had no choice but to investigate. I got out of bed and slowly crept up the stairs to the attic, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. As I entered the attic, I noticed a trail of children's toys leading out the window. I followed the trail, feeling a strange compulsion to do so. The trail led me to an abandoned daycare center near the edge of town. I stayed back, afraid to enter, but I couldn't help but feel drawn to the place. I knew something was waiting for me inside, something dark and dangerous. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The place was dark and silent, but as I walked around, I noticed the walls were covered in eerie drawings of children and babies. Then I heard the sound of a baby crying again, coming from the back of the room. I followed the sound, and when I reached the back of the room, I saw a crib with a stillborn baby inside. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized what was haunting me. The stillborn baby was the one in the attic. I backed away slowly, my heart pounding in my ears. I knew I had to leave this place, and I quickly ran out the door, never looking back. The next few days are confusing for Veg. He doesn't sleep well, he's exhausted all the time, and he begins to forget things. He notices new scripts and geometry in Tom's map that he doesn't remember putting there. He knows he's working on the map, but in his sleep-deprived state, he can't remember any specifics. During this time, he posts on the Doomworld forums about being unable to sleep, feeling trapped but also agoraphobic, and has feelings of loneliness while also wondering if he really is alone at all. On November 23rd, another red numeral appears, this time a 3. Veg is still tired all the time, but his dreams are becoming more personal and unsettling, and he almost prefers the tiresome days to his dreams. I was dreaming about taking a nice hot bath. I felt myself sinking deeper and deeper into the warm water until I couldn't breathe. I tried to scream, but no sound escaped my lips. I was drowning in my own bathtub. Suddenly, I felt a jolt as if I had been pulled out of the water. When I opened my eyes, I found myself in a subterranean cave illuminated by a faint, eerie blue light. I could feel a chill in the air, and I could hear the echoing of demons in the distance. I tried to scream, but my voice was muffled by the darkness of the cave. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized I was being hunted by something unseen. I heard the scraping of claws on the rocks, and I felt the ground shaking beneath me. I was terrified, and I started to run. I ran and ran until I found a small crevice in the wall of the cave. I squeezed through it and hid in the darkness, hoping the demons wouldn't find me. Eventually, I awoke in my own bed, safe and sound. But I couldn't help but feel a lingering fear that the demons were still out there, watching and waiting. The next month sees Veg's mental state steadily becoming worse. His insomnia keeps him from sleeping, and he obsessively works on Tom's Doom map. Despite the large amount of time he's spending on mapping, he's still regularly finding additions that he doesn't remember adding. Veg begins to wonder if the map has a mind of its own, but quickly dismisses the idea, stating that he's just exhausted and not thinking straight. His friends, family, and coworkers have all begun to notice that he's been acting a lot more irritable and anxious lately, and Veg takes some time off of work to rest. Christmas is coming up, and even though he doesn't feel like being around people right now, he says he's actually looking forward to taking time off of school to be with his family. Unfortunately, Veg's optimism doesn't last, as December 18th brings us a red number 1 and another strange journal entry. I was in the bathroom, standing in front of the mirror, shaving. As I looked at my reflection, I noticed it winked at me. It was so strange and unexpected that I threw my razor at the mirror. I was so scared that I expected the mirror to shatter, but instead it stayed intact. I was even more surprised when I put my hand through the mirror and I could feel the glass. I kept going and I was able to climb all the way into the mirror. It was like a tunnel. When I looked back, I saw myself in the mirror, and this time I winked back. It was so surreal, but I felt like I belonged there. There was something comforting about being in the mirror, like it was my home. I woke up feeling so confused and shocked, and I still can't believe it was just a dream. By January, Veg is taking more time off of work, but this time it's not to relax, it's to sink more time into Tom's map, which he is now officially calling MyHouse.wad. The unusual occurrences seem to be accelerating, and Veg is now certain that someone or something is watching him and controlling the direction of the project. He's paranoid, unnerved, and no longer feels in control, but he's determined to finish the map. I was driving along a road in the woods when all of a sudden my car veered off the road and crashed into a tree. I woke up to find myself in the driver's seat with an injured and bleeding leg. My head was spinning and I felt disoriented. I dragged myself out of the car and hobbled my way through the woods in hopes of finding help. My leg was in agony and I felt like I was going to faint. Through the trees I saw the light from a lonely gas station. I was relieved to find it open, but then I realized that there was nobody there. I had no idea where everybody had gone. As I was standing there, I heard some strange noises coming from the woods around me. I was too scared to investigate, so I just stood there, feeling scared and alone. Suddenly, I heard a car in the distance and I limped towards it. Thank goodness it was a taxi driver who was able to take me to the hospital. I eventually woke up in a cold sweat, not sure if I was relieved or disappointed that it was just a dream. A few days later, Veg discovers his mapping programs are unable to open the map he's been working on because it's now an entirely different file type. A PK3 is not an unusual format for a Doom map in 2023, especially one using many of the latest source port's fanciest features, but it is a sign that the project has exploded from a simple touch-up job into something much more elaborate. And the fact that Veg doesn't even remember doing this is alarming. Last night I had a nightmare that felt so real I can still feel the fear and terror coursing through me as I write this. I was on an airplane and I was the only passenger. I looked out the window to the ground below and noticed that the terrain was unfamiliar. I had no idea where I was or where I was going. Suddenly the plane started to shake violently and I heard a loud noise coming from the engine. In the distance I could see a huge storm cloud coming toward me. I tried to communicate with the pilot, but I couldn't hear him over the sound of the engine. The plane began to dive, and suddenly I felt a huge jolt. I looked out the window again and saw that the plane was heading for some kind of structure. I closed my eyes and felt the plane crash. I felt the impact and heard the screams and cries from the people around me. I then woke up, my heart pounding and my body drenched in sweat. I don't know if it's the memories of my friend that keep flooding back while working on this map, but I need to take a break. This project, which began as a simple cleanup and release as a memorial, has consumed all my free time. Hours pass and I'm not aware of the time or familiar with the work added to the map. I'm going to stop mapping for a while and come back later when I'm in a better place. I mapped again last night. And tonight. I'll take a break for real this time. I hope it will let me. On February 14th, Veg wishes a happy Valentine's Day to the only person he ever loved, and laments that their time together was too short. He hopes one day they'll be together again. In the meantime, Veg promises to keep looking for someone else who can be the ray of light in his life that his lost love once was. A few days later, Veg discovers an area of the map that he is certain he didn't build himself. He still recognizes the original house in there, but it has become so intertwined with new areas that it is impossible to separate the two. I would be more disturbed if it wasn't so beautiful. Veg takes more time off of work to finish the map. He accepts now that the map is building itself, but it needs him. It needs his help, his guiding hand. It responds to his designs and changes them to match his emotional state. It knows what I'm feeling. It knows how Thomas felt. Over the following weeks, Veg finishes the map, but all the days begin to run together, this time literally, as the text on the page spills over from one journal entry into the next. I can no longer tell what elements of this map are my friends, which are mine, and what the map has created. I am no longer afraid that the map is creating itself. It needs me as much as I need it. Which reminds me of a dream I had the other night. I'm not sleeping so much, but I recall this one with surprising clarity. I was standing on a beach staring out at the placid water, the ocean stretching out as far as the eye could see. Seagulls cawed overhead and the gentle caress of water lapped the sand in front of me. I dipped my toes into the water, at least I tried. There was no water, no ocean, it was an illusion. I realized everything around me was fake. The trees, the birds, the sand, it was all a one-act play and I was Willy Loman, a damned fool who believed in something greater. But there was no happiness to be found. I wandered the set only to find myself staring into oblivion. It was the end of time itself. No joy, no misery, no sadness, only emptiness. Men of faith tell us the afterlife is for eternity, but is it possible to keep your sanity for an eternity? A day passes in the void. A month, a year, 2, 5, 10. Is this an eternity? 20 years, 100 years, 1,000 years. I've sat in this room for 1,000,000 years now, entertaining the same thoughts, pondering the same questions, and ruminating on every mistake in my life, anguishing over them for centuries. 1,000,000,000 years now. Double that. Now double it again. I am still nowhere close to the end of eternity. I pray for death, but it never comes. Just me and my thoughts and my mistakes and my insecurities and my regrets and my loneliness. Somewhere in another dream, the version of myself that winked back is sitting on the real beach, happy and content, knowing that life is finite. There is no afterlife, and happiness is found in the small things around us that we can control. Happiness has to be fought for. And finally, that brings us to the map itself. Both the .wad and the .pk3 file are available for download. This isn't just a spooky story, it's a map you can download and play for yourself. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Not here though. This video's already gotten a little too long, so I'll split the playthrough off into its own video. I'll see you over there.